Hello and welcome to episode 15 of Romance Isn't Dead. And now for something completely awful. Good morning!
Morning! We have sun!
You do? That's amazing.
I know. I will say this, Happy Mother's Day to everybody in the US. It was Mothering Sunday over here in the UK back in March. So, yay!
Yay! Yes, just Mothering Sunday today for us. And if you are a puppy mom or a pet mom or any kind of mom, happy Mother's Day. I think that we've got some romance news. And,
we do.
Ray, could you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay, well, last week you may remember that we mentioned Danielle Steele has got 4 books due out before the end of next year. And I think, I know. And both Sally and I said, wow, how does she do it? Can she share her secrets? Well, she heard us. Well, probably not us. But she released an interview with Glamour magazine over in the UK about her writing method. Do you fancy writing for 20 hours a day?
Me?
Yeah.
No. I don't have that kind of time.
Well, it seems that is how Danielle Steele gets her novels written. She writes for 20 hours a day, wrapped in cashmere and supping on bittersweet chocolate while writing across Europe, on a manual typewriter no less, and quite similar to one that I used to have, and she calls it Ollie. But
okay, I'm sorry. You said 20 hours a day.
Yes, 20 hours a day, apparently.
And when does she sleep?
Possibly for the 4 hours she's not writing.
And I don't.
But maybe she's Margaret Thatcher, like she apparently survived on 4 hours of sleep a day, 4 hours of sleep a night.
Well, I mean, you can do that, but I mean, she has to take a break, and then I don't know. That just doesn't seem feasible to me.
Me neither. Because can you imagine the backache you get?
Is she single, Danielle Steele? She'd have to be.
I don't know.
She'd have to be, because if you're not going to devote any time to anything, then except your writing, then.
And apparently, even better in this interview, she actually stated that she wasn't going to retire from writing, even though she's worth something like 320 million. She is going to write until she dies.
Well, I
saw this yesterday and I thought, oh, that's how she gets all those books written. And then I thought, no, that's not me. my backside would start to hurt too much.
Well, I mean, okay, so you have homes in San Francisco and Paris, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You need to leave the house and go see things.
Well, yeah, I'd have thought so.
Maybe she's just being hyperbolic.
Perhaps, or maybe she works 20 hours a day, 5 days a week, and then spends the weekend doing whatever. I don't know. The lives of the rich and famous. Who can understand them? Because I can't.
No, not me either.
And I don't think I'd envy that schedule either.
I don't even want to think about it. Okay, so should we move on?
Yes, because we've got a lot to talk about.
Okay. All right. Do you want to take it away?
Yeah. This week may well run a little bit long, and we are going to add a disclaimer, which Sally is going to tell you about. But we're going to try and do our best not to overstay our welcome. We did think, stupidly, that things could not get any worse than last week's book, Frontier Woman, with the triggering. It was grammatically correct, so it was relatively well written. However, clearly 2 authors that we both read over the last fortnight decided we can do better. Here, have our wine coolers and we'll prove it. So, Sally,
better, worse. It's interchangeable.
It is very.
I just would like to issue a mild content warning for you. So if you are listening to this and you happen to have small humans in the car, maybe hold out on listening to it till you don't have the miniature humans. I know that if I had my girls in the room, some of the things that we're going to have to discuss today, I would not want to discuss with them because they're just a little too young for it. So just as a content warning, we're going to do our best to keep it not vulgar or anything, but the content is a bit more mature.
It's a conversation you don't want with your kids right now.
Yeah, no.
That's the question you don't want them asking.
Right. And so just kind of, hopefully it won't be as bad as I'm giving this warning sort of as a preemptive thing, but I just would hate for anyone to have to answer uncomfortable questions because I didn't give you a heads up. Hey, there might be something coming down the pike. That's where I'm coming from. So if you don't want to have to potentially answer somewhat uncomfortable questions from your kids, maybe turn this off and come back later. But definitely come back later because I think we do have things to say. Is that fair, Ray?
I think it's perfectly fair.
Okay.
I wouldn't have even thought of the little humans warning because I don't have any and I can tell my cat anything. But
she's very understanding.
Yeah. She's far too understanding sometimes. But it being Mothering Sunday, this might be something you want to listen to while you're soaking in the tub, if you get the chance.
Right. Okay, so, all right. Are we ready?
I think so.
Okay. All right. How do we want to start this?
Well, I think we need to start with what gave us the idea for this.
Okay.
Because it was stupid. So stupid.
Okay, so what happened? Or in the parlance of some folks in the United States, what had happened was we were looking on Amazon at new romance that's coming out, and I saw that Christine Feehan was going to have a new book in a series that she had started publishing, and none of it was particularly old, so I thought, all right, well, you know what? We could potentially read this new book when it comes out in the series, but over the next couple of weeks, read the two leading up to it. So we'd have sort of this discussion, like this continuing discussion of this series. And so I bought the book. And the book that I bought was, hold on, let me pull it up on my Kindle so I can give you the exact correct name, Shadow Rider. A Shadow Rider's novel, book 1.
It sounds kind of dark. Yeah, it sounds kind of dark. It sounds kind of supernatural.
And it is all of those things. That is absolutely truth in advertising. Let's call that truth in advertising.
But then you see Christine Feehan and you think, I like her books. What can go wrong? Okay.
I do kind of like her. And so as I'm reading it, I was telling Ray basically that it was really not what I had got myself in for. And she had a thought as I was sort of kvetching about what I was having to read. Ray, what did you think?
I thought something so dumb. I thought, well, if it's that bad, maybe I should take the hit and do what we had been discussing and we've mentioned on here a few weeks ago and read The Mister by E.L. James. I want to spear my eyes out with a fork. It's not good, but we're talking about Shadow Rider right now, and we'll get into my mistakes later on.
Oh, bless.
So bad.
So
anyway,
I am a Christine Feehan reader from back when I think the Dark series came out. And I think the first one I read was, I think, the 5th one in the series. And, you know, you've got this really broody alpha male, and he's a vampire, and blah, 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 blah. And so, it's a thing, right? And it was an interesting take on vampires and so on and so forth. So, I really didn't, I don't know, I've read a lot of Christine Feehan. I've read some of her Leopard series. I've read some of her Game series. So I really kind of felt like I was prepared for
Yeah.
whatever she was going to kind of toss at me, and that was totally fine. This book, no.
What? Know what you weren't prepared, or know why?
Um, this book had, okay, I was probably halfway in, and I realized I was still unclear as to what exactly a shadow writer was. Like, and they never really, they try to explain it textually, sort of contextually, but it's never super clear to me. This book has some consent issues. Now, and I'm trying to think how to put I told Ray as I was moving along, I said, this book really, it's like Christine Feehan is playing at BDSM.
Yeah. Well, you sent me that snippet of the
And
book,
then
and I read it out at work, and they just looked at me. It's the quietest I've seen one of my colleagues ever be,
uh-huh.
because I think it was shock.
Uh-huh.
It's something so bad. I mean, the thing is, I've read the Carpathians as well. I loved the early part of the series. I think it got too long, but I did love
Right.
the early part of the series,
Right.
and I liked the way that she wrote.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I possibly would have done the same as you and picked up that book and thought, oh, it's a different series. It's something new, and I'm getting in right at the beginning rather than having to source the books, which
Mm-hmm.
sometimes isn't so easy over here, but thank you, Amazon, for making it a little bit easier. I'm not plugging
Right.
Amazon. I'm just saying thank you for making it easier to get books over here.
Right. Right. And so when I'm reading this, like, I have certain expectations for her because I have read numerous novels by her, but I really didn't feel like she did a particularly good job of contextually explaining exactly what a shadow writer was.
Do
And
you still not know?
I know, like, when we
That
got
doesn't
deep
sound
into,
sure.
well, when we got deep into the novel, there's this discussion of it, right? And so I get it later on, but I just still wasn't super. I don't know. It's fine, but that was an early on sort of critique. The other thing is, and I think what bothered me the most was that she really, like I said, she was kind of playing at BDSM, but it doesn't seem like it's something she knows very much about. That having been said, I don't know a whole lot about it. I just know enough about BDSM to know that I don't know enough to write a book about it.
Which is
And
honest.
and I feel like she doesn't know enough to write a book about it, and so she kind of played at it and then didn't do it. I mean, there aren't a bunch of whips and chains or anything like that, but
But it's not all about whips and
no, no,
chains, is
no,
it?
no, no, it's not. I don't think it's all about whips and chains, but I'm just trying to say that that's not in this book. There's some spanking in this book, and there wasn't like a content warning that there's like spanking in this book. So if that's a trigger for you, then you definitely don't want to read that. And there are some consent issues, and I try to give authors the benefit of the doubt, but even for me, I'm an old reader, right? I've been reading this stuff for
Yeah.
years, so
Open-minded and
yeah, I try
all that.
real hard to be like, okay, no, here's but maybe it was just that I didn't find the hero particularly likable, so I wasn't super forgiving of him. I don't know, but it just did not meet expectations of what I would want or hope from a Christine Feehan novel. And the excerpt that I sent, I'll read a brief part of it. This is page, I think, 401-ish, 409 of 468. This was not a short novel. Okay. Stefano woke with the dawn creeping into the bedroom, an urgent need clawing at his belly. I'm going to delete his... was thick and hard and desperate to be inside Francesca's warm, wet channel. So apparently it has a mind of its own.
That seems to be a problem with a lot of books these days.
And it was desperate, not him. Right?
Okay.
So
Wow,
apparently it has its own mind and it's operating outside of any male control. Like any mental control that he may have is operating outside of that. I could go on, and
is this perhaps a problem with some women writing about male biology that they don't comprehend?
I don't know, but I mean, like, I had to read it twice because I wasn't certain what I was seeing. Because
is that why you sent it to me?
Well, that and it read like bad fanfic.
Yeah.
It reminded me of the baseball bat.
Oh no. Oh no, not that fic.
There was a terrible fic. And we're not going to go into it, but every time I read something terrible, I'm like, baseball bat to Ray, and she knows. So
that's because I'm the one that sent it to you.
Yeah. So if I had to scrub my eyes out with a Brillo pad after that, then you get to scrub your Brillo eyes out with a pad. But I sent that to you because this is the very beginning of chapter 23. So, yeah, I guess if I were looking for something new to read by Christine Feehan, I would probably skip this series.
Go back to reread something else.
Yeah, perhaps reread the old Carpathian series or one of her early Shadow Game novels. What this feels like to me is that she was looking for a new paranormal angle, and she's just kind of randomly she latched onto this, and it maybe didn't feel quite. I don't know. It just doesn't.
It's because it's selling well in other aspects of the romance market, maybe.
I don't know, but I can't. This one's tough for me. So, Ray, I'm going to stop there and let you take it away because I think you have even more to say than I do.
Oh God, yeah. Where to start? This was hard for me. I don't know why I picked this book up, and as soon as we finish this, I am deleting it from my Kindle. And if I could delete it from my purchase history, I would. This book, The Mister, the new book by E.L. James, I think the saddest part about it is that it could have been a good story had it been written by someone else. There were characters in there that were unnecessary. The lead female character was pathetic. I think that's the kindest word I can say. The lead male character, who is supposed to be worldly wise, incredibly sexually active. We're talking about, this is a guy who slept with his brother's widow after his funeral, for goodness sake. I mean, that's just not a done thing. And then after 3 weeks of being with this woman, with his cleaner, who he constantly refers to as his daily, which is so old-fashioned, it's ridiculous. His daily. It's a term over here for somebody who comes in on the daily to clean.
Okay.
It's very English. In the space of 3 weeks, he goes from meeting his new daily, Alessia, who is from... Oh, God, I can't even remember. I only finished reading it yesterday. She is from the Eastern Bloc, the Eastern European Bloc, and she was smuggled over here by sex traffickers and she escaped. So she is on the run, hiding out, and they go through so much trouble to get her back. But it is such a tiny plot point. The rest of the story, there is no plot. It's really bad. It's all about these two characters getting to know each other, and I'm getting very mishmashed in here. But in the space of the 3 weeks, as I say, he meets his new daily, still sleeping with multiple other girls, falls in love with her, seduces her. She's a virgin, and she comes across as very confused because she is both someone who went to university and has an education. She spent her childhood and adulthood reading English books, yet her English is so broken that she'll say things like, "I am cleaner, mister," which... the use of Mr. all the way through this makes you realise why they called it The Mister. However, it's the most annoying phrase. It makes it sound like it's something from Dickens.
Mm-hmm.
And when she gets kidnapped by the man her father had arranged for her to marry, a gangster with lots of money apparently, who was abusive and threatened to break her fingers and everything else, but you don't find this out until way into the book. He then, the Mr. Maxim, follows her to Eastern Europe to get her back.
Okay, wait, whoa, 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 whoa. So she was kidnapped by sex traffickers.
No, she wasn't kidnapped by sex traffickers. Her mother arranged for her to get to England to escape from the man, Anatoly, that her father had arranged for her to marry. He basically sold her off for a loan, but he hadn't received the loan. It's very confusing. And so she arranges for her daughter to come to England and doesn't realise that the people she's arranged for her daughter to travel with are actually sex traffickers.
Okay, so then she escapes the Did the sex traffickers try to get her back too?
They do try and get her back. They beat her up. They somehow managed to find her and Maxim at this place at his family seat in the southwest of the UK, so Devon, Cornwall area. They beat her up and then they are arrested. It's so convoluted. I mean, there are so many things in here that are unnecessary, like
Too many moving parts?
too many moving parts that are unnecessary.
Okay.
I mean, the whole thing with his sister-in-law, why bother mentioning that he slept with her? He goes round to see her after he returns to London because his flat is burgled. He returns to London with Alessia and goes straight away to see his sister-in-law, who all of a sudden becomes clingy and desperate and pathetic. It's like, do you not like women or something? This is to E.L. James, not to Maxim, who clearly likes women way too much. And it's kind of like going round to see his sister-in-law, where they have a discussion about his brother who died, and it could have been an accident, but it could have been suicide. That's never resolved. So no reason is given for why he maybe committed suicide.
Younger
or
brother
what.
or older brother?
Older brother, which is why he's now an earl. I mean, the title thing was completely pointless. Completely pointless. It was unnecessary in the extreme. It played no part in the story at all. He could have been Joe Bloggs off the street or a famous rugby player. It wouldn't have mattered because the story would have still played out the same.
I'm going to ask this question. Do you think maybe she did that to try and appeal to American audiences who are, who tend to, some Americans tend to be interested in the British peerage? Do you think maybe she was trying to play on that, like as a commercial thing, or do you think it's not that sophisticated?
I don't think it's that sophisticated.
Okay.
I think it was just, if that had been the case, then him going around in that society and his entire life revolving around that society would have made sense. But he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
He was the troublemaking younger brother who was the spare. Mm-hmm. And apparently his brother constantly called him the spare.
Oh, wow.
Which I'd have personally... Yeah, but he apparently did it in a playful way and he missed his brother and I don't know. I actually have to admit that I stopped giving a single fig about any of this by about 50% of the way through. And I'm someone who reads a lot of books.
Mm-hmm.
I read a lot. I can read 2 or 3 books in a week, if not more. This book took me 2 weeks to read. And by 50% of the way through the book, which was the first time there's actually any physical contact between Maxim and Alessia, I had lost the will to live. This book is 516 pages long.
That's insane.
It is completely insane. It's almost as though there were certain, I think that there are 3 things that annoyed me about this book, and I'm glad that I'm the one that read it rather than Sally, because I know they would have annoyed her even more than they annoyed me. One is the use of first person present tense. through the perspective of the male character. The second is third person present tense, which is the view of Alessia, who, even though they're sleeping together, still calls him Mr. Don't get me started. And the third is constant short sentences. And I'm saying that with emphasis for a reason. Every single page, every single paragraph, the sentences are really short. It's written as though it's targeting a very young audience who doesn't read very much, or someone who can't keep their who can't maintain an attention, hasn't got an attention span.
Okay.
I struggled with it because I found it frustrating as anything. I didn't like the characters. I didn't like the story. I felt that actually it could have been fantastic as a fanfic in any of the fandoms. But as an original novel that was published and people paid for, I paid for this. It so annoyed me. It was just not worth it. So my recommendation, don't read it unless you really want to hurt yourself mentally.
Okay, so that was one of the reasons I objected to reading this in general, because I did not want to spend $10 on it, which is what it costs. At least the last time I looked at it, it cost $10.
The funny thing is, it now costs, if you buy it in paperback over here, it's £3.99, £3.99, which is about $6.
Wow.
And that's paperback.
Wow. Well, needless to say, I don't. Ugh, okay, so I'm looking at this, and is it
It's not even hot.
Does it read like 50 Shades?
I don't know, because I haven't read 50 Shades.
Okay.
I wasn't going to. I read the reviews of 50 Shades and decided that I wasn't going to inflict that upon myself. If I wanted to read BDSM, I was going to read something by Anne Rice.
Is she like Anne Rice, like Vampire Anne Rice?
Yes, but she wrote a trilogy under an Anne Baudelaire called the Sleeping Beauty trilogy, which I would say it's a much thinner books, and it sort of plays on fairy tales.
Interesting. I didn't realize that she had done that.
Yes, she did.
Okay.
There you go. Education every day on this channel.
Okay, so I'm going to say this, and maybe it's bad, or I'm just going to say it. I said what I said. I have a problem with a quote-unquote romance novel being written primarily from the point of view of the hero.
I agree. But then I had a problem with it because it didn't feel organic.
Right. Because the thing is, okay, so it's not that I have a problem with a male point of view in a romance novel, but
no, because some have to be.
Yeah, taking the romance novel that I read, for instance, the Christine Feehan book, it was written in both of their points of view, and that to me was fine. It was not. It was written in both of their points of view. It was written in Stefano's point of view, and then was it Francesca? I can't remember her name.
Yeah, it was Francesca.
She reused the name Francesca? Oh man, I read that whole book and realized she reused a name. Okay, so
it's because there aren't any more names in the world. Didn't you know that? Because apparently this the main character in this book, Maxim Trevelyan is apparently the maiden name of Christian Grey's mother.
Oh my gosh.
I only know that because I had to read other to make sure I wasn't alone.
Right.
Because the reviews on Amazon, 55% of the reviews on this were 5-star.
But I think my problem with that is that first of all, first person present tense is wretched. But,
it is.
But that having been said, how could you only do that from the male perspective when romance novels typically are written by women for women? That doesn't, like, if we're seeing inside anybody's head, it should be her head, not his.
You'd have thought
Right?
so.
Because,
But
and to
then,
me,
but
that's,
then would it have been in the horrendous broken English that she had the character using in the book?
but that having been, no, it wouldn't have. It shouldn't have
Why?
been.
You don't know.
I know, well, let's just say it shouldn't have. But the other thing is, that is just so, to have that first person be his perspective, not hers, runs so counter to anything that is female headed, right? I mean,
Mm.
it doesn't, especially because she doesn't have that same respect,
Yeah,
right?
I agree. I will say the one thing you were talking about consent earlier, and the one thing that this book has a lot of, and it gets a little bit irritating when the third or fourth time they're in bed together, he's still doing it, is the consent. And it's quite funny because I've just been reading the reviews that were written by the press, and it says here E.L. James does a valiant job of playing up the importance of contraception and consent and the dangers of abusive relationships. But if that's the only good thing that someone can say, then I'm not sure it's saying it's a good book.
Well, okay, so yeah, she does a valiant job, but the bottom line is there is a power imbalance that exists between the two of them from the jump that I just don't
Well, yeah,
like.
it's the class thing.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't like. I mean, I can't. Okay, all right. I I just don't like it. I don't like the premise, but it wouldn't be a book that I would pick up normally anyway. It's certainly not one I'll pick up now.
No,
Um,
I would heartily recommend you pick up anything, but I'm now having to find anything else. So recommendations below for something that will completely clear my head of any of the horrifying, horrific writing that I've just put myself through for you, by the way. Any recommendations, put them below because I'm heartily accepting recommendations for new books.
okay, well, is there anything else that we need to say about these two books?
Well, apart from don't read them, find something else.
Right. Apart from that,
No, well, I would actually be interested in hearing from anybody who liked them.
fair enough. I mean, I think that's fair. Defend the books to us. Explain to us
Yeah,
why we're wrong.
yeah. Well, we're not wrong. We have our opinions. Um, but explain to us what you liked, what you didn't like, what you felt was done really well, and why you liked the books. Because I'd be really interested to hear. I mean, I don't know if we're both speaking from a different perspective. One of the things that struck me with a lot of the reviews that I've read is that people were saying if you're looking, don't criticize the grammar.
What?
But it's a book. It's been published. You're paying for it. If it's
What do you mean?
badly written,
Don't criticize the grammar.
seriously, somebody actually put in a review. I was looking at I was going through the reviews, and someone said, "Why buy the book if you're going to slate it?" Um, it's some kinky fun. It's not written as a historical educational essay on sex. Well, no, it's not.
But that doesn't mean it
Some
shouldn't be
apparently,
use
yeah,
standard
apparently,
English.
yeah, apparently some reviews on here are quite critical of the content and the writing.
Well,
But we're reading it as a book. It is money that we've spent on a book, and you read a book for the content and the writing. So why wouldn't you criticize them?
I'm not. Yeah, I'm
I
not.
mean, it would have been fine had the storyline of either of our books been really good, engaging. The characters have been good. You can forgive.
Hmm.
I mean, how many times have you picked up a book and gone, "Oh well, the writing wasn't that great," or read a fanfic even. The writing wasn't that great, but the storyline was fantastic and the characters really drew you in.
Well, I mean, to be fair, this book This book for me, I did not like it. I did not enjoy it, but ultimately it was forgettable, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately it was forgettable and it didn't offend me deeply. It just wasn't quite what I expected from a published author, a best-selling published author who has been represented by a book agent presumably for a very long time. This one felt a little phoned in, if you will, and it needed help. And I did not enjoy, obviously, some of those passages, but it didn't offend me on the level that this book probably that you read would probably, because I would probably just be offended by just its existence. So it's good I didn't read it.
Yeah, I thought that. I mean, as I said, it took me 2 weeks to read, and I finally finished it yesterday. In fact, if you see me on Twitter anywhere at All About Ray, you will have seen I've reached 98%. I finally finished because I was so relieved.
To be done.
So relieved to be done because now I made so many notes. I haven't made as many notes on a book while reading it since I was doing my degree. I made pages of notes in Kindle. I'm not going to share them on Goodreads because they are mostly pulling apart the grammar, the content, the characterization, all the things that people apparently get offended at being criticized.
You know why they're offended? They're offended because those are quantifiable things that are actually wrong, and there's no defense against making those kinds of mistakes, and so they get their backs up because there's no way to defend against it except, why are you even bothering?
Yeah.
Know?
Well,
and then
I'm a human.
Yeah, and then the stuff that they liked about it's all opinion, right? So
that's the thing. It is personal view. I didn't like it. In fact, I'd go so far as to say I wish Goodreads would make a 0 star and a negative star rating. I've never wanted to rate. I've read some books that I didn't like, and I really didn't like them, but I've never wanted to negative rate a book before now.
Well, let me say this. This makes you want to go back into the books that we gave 3 stars. Makes you want to go back and give them at least 4, doesn't it?
Yes. It does. It makes me feel a bit guilty because the one thing that I find frustrating is when you're writing a review, you have to give it a star rating. Even if you didn't like it. If you want to write a review, you have to give it a star rating. And there is no option for minus 2,576, which is currently what my brain is telling me it needs.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty then. Can you give it a 0.5 star?
Nope. You have to give it a whole star or more.
So, you go negative. Big time.
Mm-hmm. Oh, God,
I would probably give this particular Feehan book 2 stars.
That's generous.
At best. But then again, we've read some of the books that we've read, I would give 5 stars, and you've only given them 3 stars. So I guess you'd have to give it a 1 star because it is nowhere near as good as, say, Ransom. And we only gave Ransom 3 stars, although I argued pretty heavily that we should give it more stars. You were like, no, we need to go 3.
I know, but I think my reason for the ratings is that we can't give half stars, and I don't think a 5-star rating is enough, which is why we have the Chili rating, which is 10.
Right, but yeah, you're right. I'm not giving this one a Chili rating because first of all, it's been 2 weeks since I've read it, or a week and a half since I read it, and I'm not going back to reread it. And no, it's not
I'm not giving. Well, I can't give this one a Chili. I can't give this one in all conscience. The sex scenes made me laugh.
They didn't make you hot under the collar. They made you laugh.
I was sitting on the bus on the way to work, and quite often I will read a book on the way to work, and I can get a little bit flushed. In fact, several people have commented on the fact that I've walked into the office a little bit flushed, or I've come back from lunch a little bit flushed from reading a book. This book, I was laughing so hard I snorted.
Like that.
Well, no, mine is more. I sound a little bit like a pig. And I actually laughed so much I snorted reading the sex scenes in this book.
Wow. For the
And I
record,
and I used to edit fanfic.
if you are a novelist listening to our podcast, if people are laughing when they're reading your sex scenes and you're trying to make them hot under the collar, that's probably not a good sign.
No, it's not.
Oh no. I mean, okay, so we need to go back. We need to have a book that we actually liked. So hopefully our book for the next fortnight will cleanse the palate a little bit, or for this coming up week will cleanse the palate a little bit.
Yeah, maybe.
But it is very much an alpha male, and it is an older book, so we are going to be seeing how it aged. It's called Dream Man by Linda Howard.
I mean, it's your choice this week
And
as
it was
well.
my choice this week, and hopefully Ray will not hate it.
I don't think I think that anything that is going to bleach my brain of the book that I've just finished is going to be getting a better reception than,
Right.
than that.
Well, let me say this. I do want to give out a bit of a content warning for this book that we're reading. It's not sexual violence, but there is violence against women. Like there's the primary plot point is that there's a man who is a serial killer, and he kills. He targets women, very specific women, and he kills them very bloody. And the heroine is a psychic, and she involuntarily, he projects into her head what he's doing. And then the hero of the piece is a police officer who's hard bitten and very skeptical about psychics and all of that stuff. So if you do not enjoy books that have any violence in them, this is going to be a book you're going to want to take a pass on. But it's not sexual violence against women. Does that make sense?
Yeah, total sense.
It's just, it's murder.
So in other words, it's kind of like a crime romance.
It is. It's definitely, because they're trying to solve a crime at the same time.
Yeah.
And so it's a crime thriller, but it is definitely romance, because the primary plot is the hero and the heroine realizing that they're in love, and they enjoy each other's company. So yeah, that's the primary thing. But yeah, the hero's name is Dane. So anyway, I like Dane. But I have not.
If he has a Texan accent, then I can continue my wonderful imaginings of Christian Kane in Leverage.
He's a Floridian, and he's really tall. So
the height's no bearing. Seriously. Well, I'm 4'11". I mean, the height really has no bearing.
Height has bearing for me. Okay?
Yeah, Michael J. Fox would have been tall for me.
Height has bearing for me. But anyway, I'm just saying to you, just in general, or to our listeners as well, that there is violence in this book, but it is not, and it is violence against women, but it's not sexual violence. It is instead just this is a serial killer.
Yeah.
And the hunt for a serial killer. So I just wanted to give everybody a heads up on that. And I hope you decide to read along with us. That's Linda Howard, Dream Man. And this is an older book. I have not read it in a couple years. So I'm going to be reading it this time to try and figure out how it aged.
Whereas I'm going to be reading it for the first time. So it's a swap on last time's book.
Yes. And
hopefully it's going to fare a little bit better.
Well, I still feel a little bit bad for being so hard on Frontier Woman. I do. Because I was like, Ray read this book, and Ray recommended this book, or Ray chose this book, and I feel like I should find something I like about it, and all I could find was the grammar. So.
Yeah, but to be fair, it didn't age well. It hasn't aged well. It's one of those books that you look at and you think, when you're 16 years old, you read it through totally different eyes. When you're 16 years old I was 16 years old in the 90s. When you're going that far back, we looked at books differently.
I guess so, yeah. I know, but
and you weren't a mother.
No, I was not.
And
No,
do you think,
definitely
and that
not.
may well have changed your view? And I hadn't gone through a load of life experience that I have now. So
Mm-hmm.
I looked at it very, very different. I looked at it through older, more experienced eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when I read it at 16, I was still in school. I was pretty naive. I was the bookworm, and it was an escape. Whereas now I look at it and think, oh, that. I don't remember reading that. And it may well have been that I skimmed it.
Yeah, maybe. So I get that. And hopefully Linda Howard will
Not
fare a little
disappoint.
bit better. Fare a little bit better for us in this next week. So, do we have anything else we need to say?
No, just keep on searching for your happily ever after.
And I would remind you that romance isn't dead. It's alive and well on your bookshelf.
B-
Bye.
Bye.